I want to talk real quick about the importance of using shutter angle, especially if you have a camera where you can pick shutter speed or in terms of seconds versus shutter angle. And if you have a camera like the GH4 where you can actually pick to use shutter angle, I think it's a better option. I've talked about this before in a few other videos, but I still see people, even people who have the GH4 and they're shooting video, primarily video, they still shoot with a shutter speed like you would in photography. So they're shooting with speeds of like 1/50th of a second or 1/60th of a second or 1/125th of a second, depending on their frame rate. But every time they switch frame rate, they have to dial in and they have to dial in their shutter speed. I like to shoot with shutter angle because you can set it at 180 degrees. Most of these people are following that rule anyway by shooting at, 1/50th of a second if they're shooting 24 frames a second, or 1/60th of a second if they're shooting 30 frames a second. If you're doing that, why worry about the math? Why worry about changing things that can get thrown off? Just set the camera to 180 degree shutter angle, and then it will always update depending on the frame rate you've selected. So if you shoot at a higher frame rate, the camera is smart enough to know that you still want that 180 degree shutter, and it will adjust the shutter speed for you. So you don't have to worry about anything. This is really helpful, especially if you're handing the camera to somebody else. You want to make sure they get the settings right. You can just tell them, hey, just make sure that right there at the bottom, just make sure that always says 180 degrees. And the nice thing about it is that you're not locked to 180. So if you do want to shoot at something else, like a 90 degree shutter or 360 degree shutter, whatever it might be, you can do that as well. And this is really important on the GH4 that this is just for the video mode. So it doesn't affect any of the photography settings. You still can do shutter speed in terms of seconds if you want in the photography mode, but in the video mode, you can set it to shutter angle and all your problems will be solved. I always recommend shooting at 180 degree shutter speed for the most part, almost all the time. There are a few exceptions where you would want to change it. I certainly am guilty of that, of breaking the rule, if you will. But for the most part, as a general rule, it's always good to do 180 degree shutter angle just because it's going to give you the most natural looking motion blur, in my opinion. And it's kind of the standard that's been set after years and years and years of people watching video. That's what they're used to seeing is 180 degree shutter angle from films and TV and all sorts of stuff. If you're playing around with the shutter speed, doing some like Mad Max kind of things, that's totally fine. That's cool. Just know what you're doing and make sure that it's what you want. And like I said, the nice thing is you can always change it from 180 degrees. So if you want to do something else, you totally can. But if you have a GH4 or another camera that lets you pick shutter angle, I highly recommend it.